So, who is going to get the next game in 2020? Spyro or Crash? Let's talk about it! What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and back with a Spyro and Crash video. Alright, so something that I have repeated multiple times on the channel is that Activision usually has a quota it has to meet per year when it comes to family-friendly games, as in games rated E or E10+. That quota was held for years by Toys for Bob and Vicarious Visions as they made the Skylander series, and every year they would release a new Skylander title to fill that quota. However, 2016 was the last year we heard of anything of Skylanders, as their popularity plummeted, but Activision held on to its quota and was able to create the Crash N. Sane trilogy, which was wildly successful, recently reporting that the game sold over 10 million copies, which is more than any other previous Skylander game has sold in total. Then, Spyro came out the following year, claiming the title of the fastest selling game in the franchise's history, even when it was being developed by Insomniac. So now in 2019, the game that will fill that quota will be Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled. But there is a monkey wrench that has been thrown into all of this and leaves me with a bit of a crossroads of a question. See, though Vicarious Visions made the first Crash remake, Beanox, another branch of Activision, who has normally been to support any other project that Activision needed them to be on, is taking the lead on this project. So, my question is simply, what game will we get for 2020? What game will fill that quota? Well, the answer is not as obvious as you may think. See, it's easy to say, well, the first game was Crash, then Spyro, then back to Crash again, so then that would mean Spyro would be coming back in 2020. But it's not as easy as that. Let's explore why. There are multiple problems with each option and statement. Let's take a look at the situation if 2020 was a new Crash Bandicoot game. The problem with this is simply that we would be getting two Crash games in a row back to back. Spyro fans may feel a bit confused as the first game was Crash, then the second was Spyro, third was Crash, and then Crash again? It would mean that we would not see Spyro again for almost 3 years from when Reignited Trilogy had initially released. Also, fans of Crash may not want him to go the old Ubisoft route with their Assassin's Creed franchise and release a title almost every year. It can lead to franchise fatigue very fast. However, let's shift the situation. If Spyro were to come in 2020, what would the problems of that be? Well, even though Crash Team Racing is a Crash game, it is not a mainline game. It's a spin-off, as in a game that does not follow the traditional genre of the series. The original game being a platformer, a kart racer is far from the original experience. So if Spyro were to come in 2020, Crash Bandicoot fans would not be able to play a new mainline Crash game till around 2021. However, another issue is that Spyro itself would have only had 2 years of development time, while the mainline Crash game would have had about 4 years of development. Now let's be real here, Spyro in terms of scope is a bigger game than Crash. Doesn't make it better, just a larger project. It doesn't make sense to have more development time for the smaller project overall. Now there is a third option which I think could be possible, but I'll get to that in a second. If I had to choose between which game would be coming in 2020, like I said, if I had to choose, my heart says Spyro, but my brain says Crash Bandicoot. Here's why. The one question that I asked myself in this whole situation was simple and kind of led me to this point. It was, what has Vicarious Visions been doing? Before Spyro even came out, Vicarious said that they were doing a massive expansion to the company to be able to hire more people for future projects. And when the mass layoffs happened over at Activision Blizzard, only like 4 to 7 people were laid off from Vicarious Visions because they had worked on Destiny 2, which was split away from Activision and is now owned by Bungie in its entirety. So I ask again, what have they been developing? It would not make sense to have Spyro come out in 2020 because it would be also underhanded in the development for Spyro and give likely an unnecessary amount of time to Crash. If Crash were to come in 2020 and Spyro were to come in 2021, then both projects would have had about 3 years to develop a new game, which makes more sense than to give Crash 4 years and Spyro 2 years of development time. Now there is one more solution that is possible. See, though Activision has a quota to release a new friendly game every year, that does not mean they are limited to one game per year. So here's a crazy theory that I'd like to throw into the ring. What if later this year being 2019, around after CTR is about to release, they drop the trailer for the new Crash game to come out in early 2020. As we got closer to the end of 2019, a trailer would drop for the new Spyro game to come out as well in 2020, but closer to the end of the year and closer to Christmas time. Now stay with me, there's a bit more to this idea. When Spyro would release, this would be close to the Christmas season, but also would be when the new consoles from Xbox and PlayStation are supposed to drop. So Spyro would be a great incentive to buy a new console, but also they would likely be releasing a dumbed down version for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. But on top of that, the new Crash Bandicoot game that would have released earlier that year would be re-released on the new gen of consoles. That would be the definitive way to play the game, as it would have improved graphics, frame rates, etc. It would also give time to the developers to fix any issues with the game and patch the game before the next gen of consoles come out, so that this would be the most polished game possible. Thus, both Crash and Spyro would have the same development time, as one would release early 2020 and the other would release late 2020. They would be multi-gen, so every consumer can get it and even possibly buy it multiple times if and when they upgrade their console. I honestly think this would solve most issues and problems, but again, what about 2021? What game would fill that quota? That's when Beanox steps to the plate to be the buffer for Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob and releases a new CTR for the next generation of consoles. I may be wrong, but I really do hope that this is how it's all set up, so that we get our purple boy and orange nutbag equally over the next few years. By the way, a huge shout out to my Patreons and sponsors on the channel. I appreciate your support and letting me be able to do this full time, as I got a family to feed. If you want to support the channel, the Patreon is in the description below, and be sure to subscribe for more nostalgic content. And while you're at it, why not check out another video I recently made? Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.